Welcome back, guys. It is the Brothers Geekout podcast. It's Kibler here. Today I'm joined with an awesome guest, Amy, Peachy Keen's Art. Where did you get that name from?
That actually came from, unsurprisingly, from a film that I love.
Okay.
Film Calling by Our Name has many, anyone who's watched it, who's into it, has many Peach references. And that's actually where it came from, because the reason I started drawing was I was filling up a kind of scrapbook because I was going to do a trip to where the film was filmed.
Okay.
In Italy, and that was planned pre-pandemic. And I was literally just doodling in a book that I was going to put my photos in. And then when it became more of a thing and I started drawing more and more and more, and I started wanting to put it online, I needed to come up with a name, and that was in my head. And also Peachy Keen is obviously a phrase anyway that people use. So I was like, we're just going to go with that. Like, awesome.
That's pretty cool. So thank you so much for making the time and coming onto the podcast. I do a segment where I talk to different artists. It doesn't matter what sort of background they're coming from, and just kind of developing their skills. And I saw your artwork last year during lockdown. I think the image that I saw was of Madonna.
Okay, yeah.
When I started following you, that's very early, yeah. And kind of caught my eye, and then we've been kind of following each other's journey ever since. And I'm seeing your artwork kind of explode. I'm loving how much it's changed over the past year. What originally got you back into? Have you been doing art for a while, or was it just something that kind of crept up on you?
It kind of crept up on me, to be honest. Historically, I'm more for writing, so I've written books in the past, and that was my I'm inherently creative, I suppose, always wanting to do something.
Yeah.
And then I started, like I said, doodling for this trip that never happened, for this book. And then I just thought, I'm going to have a go at drawing some faces just for fun. I hadn't drawn anything since school, really. And I started, I was like, I actually really enjoy this. And then I was doing it. And I was suffering with a bit of anxiety just on the cusp of before pandemic started. And I was finding it was really helpful for relaxing me and just making me zone out, because I couldn't think about everything else while I'm looking at a reference picture and I'm drawing. I'm not looking on social media. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just doing that. And I started drawing every day, and it just became a thing that I started to do. And then when lockdown happened, obviously I had endless time to do even more of it in between homeschooling and all the other things I was doing. But I had more time than normal to do it, and no social life to speak of. So I bought some better pencils and I started drawing every day. And then I just got a real taste for it, and I started to really enjoy it. And I could see myself getting better. So I was like, I need to keep going. And that's kind of when I started, like, the TikTok thing was my way of putting it out there, but I didn't know anyone. None of my friends were on TikTok at that point. Nobody I knew closely in real life was there. So it felt like a bit of a safe corner of the internet to hide in plain sight, I guess. Like, I could share it and I could get feedback, but I wasn't having to share it with everyone I knew. I found that quite enjoyable. I didn't really want to talk to people I knew in real life at that point. I just wanted to kind of put it out there. So that was a really nice space to do that, because I didn't know anyone, that nobody would find me there essentially at the start. And I didn't have my face on there to begin with for a very long time. There was no reference to me personally for a long time. It was just drawing. And then obviously that started to kind of gather pace, and I realized I needed to kind of keep producing to keep that up, but I was enjoying it, and I started experimenting with color instead of, obviously, the Madonna picture you saw was black and white.
That's right.
And then once I started drawing in color, I kind of felt like I found my stride a little bit, and it felt like that was something, it really, really worked for me, and I really liked the results of that. So, and again, the pop culture thing, it formed itself because I was like, what do I like drawing? And it was like, I've always been obsessed with films and pop culture stuff, and Funko Pops, all that kind of thing. Like, pop culture is my whole thing. So I was like, it makes sense for me to draw other faces that other people are passionate about and characters that people are passionate about, because I got a lot of enjoyment from that. And it just kind of started from there, really. So it kind of took off on its own.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I love the fact that you started on something where you didn't want anybody to see it, and you started a whole new platform, and people saw your work and they really enjoyed it. And, I think it's a process. Yeah. It must have been. I've been in marketing for coming up to like 10 years now. So it's, representing like somebody else I'm used to. It was when it was coming down to me, I found it like very weird, and will people like it, or do I
I
just?
feel like knowing what the sweet spot is for yourself is very different than for a client. So
That's right.
I work in PR and content, so I know these things and I apply these things every time I'm at work.
Yeah.
But when it comes to myself, I cannot do that, because obviously we're all our harshest critics to ourselves
right.
anyway. But
That's
I think
right.
especially, I think it's a creative person's thing, isn't it, to be self-deprecating and to question yourself and to wonder if it's going to be of interest to anyone else. And that's why TikTok was so appealing, because I didn't want commentary from people I already knew just going, oh, we love it so much, like it's so great. Because, and I didn't do it for praise at all, I don't mean it that way, but I knew I would get that from people who love me, because they're being nice and supportive and they knew I was enjoying it.
That's right.
So they'd be like, oh, we love it so much, that's so great. And I was like, I don't actually want that. And also the internet, while wonderful, can be awful. And I thought, well, people will tell me if it's a load of rubbish. They'll just tell me.
No, of course.
I didn't want to sift through all the kind of family and friends, potentially faux love first. I was like, well, just put it out there and someone will just let me know if it's worth me
continuing
it.
Yeah.
And I was doing it for fun. It wasn't for other people. I didn't really want anything from anyone. I just wanted to kind of house it somewhere. But obviously, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's nice when people are positive about it. Obviously, that's a nice feeling. But I absolutely had no intention of it becoming, I never intended to sell prints. I wasn't going to do any of that. It was just for me. I just wanted to share it. Like I was just having a nice time. It wasn't really ever intended to be any more than that. And it still isn't really, in the sense that I do sell some, but I don't think about it like a business, because then I won't enjoy it anymore and I'll feel pressured anymore. So I very much keep it in a box. Like when I'm ready to sell prints of that one, I might do, but otherwise, if I haven't sold any for a while, don't care. It's lovely. It's an honor when people want to spend money on it. But at the same time, if I get too wrapped up in that, I'll lose the reason I did it in the first place.
Exactly. And that's happened to me plenty of times. I've been on and off art for a while, and I came back to it after like a 15-year gap.
Right.
And just starting to see people enjoy their journeys and not thinking about, how do I make this a business, and the stress of that. You lose it. And I've lost it a few times, where it's like, you know what, I'm not even doing this for the right reasons anymore.
It's a bit of a roller coaster, I think, that whole thing. I certainly a few people asked me fairly early on, like the summer last year, oh, can I buy them? And I was like, maybe I'll try. And then I started looking and it became too complicated and really stressful. I couldn't find a printer. I bought a printer, but it was rubbish. I couldn't work out how to do them right. And I was like, it's too much hassle. And actually, again, it's feeling too much like a job.
That's right.
I don't want that. So I parked it again. And people were like, the same people, bless them, who wanted certain pictures were like, oh, we're still waiting. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. And it took me ages, because I was so cautious and so aware of not losing the joy for it, because it becomes so important to me personally and mentally to have that and to do that I wasn't willing to compromise that for anything. Because like I said, I will draw every day, probably, I draw every day now, and I will keep doing it, but I'm not bothered if I don't ever sell another one. And I don't mean that in an ungrateful way to the people who supported me this far, but it made sense to sell sometimes when people were asking, because I'd be doing it anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm very relaxed about, I'm rubbish at like updating the site and putting new things on there, because I just do it in my own time. Like I've got a life,
of course,
I've got a job.
Yeah.
If it starts to feel like another thing on my to-do list again, I will lose the love for it, and I don't want that. So it's just very casual.
No, that's
in a business sense.
That's amazing. I mean, having the love for something like that is so important, and it's what I encourage most of the people if I mentor, if I teach or anything like that, is just don't look at the numbers, don't make it a to-do list.
It's a trap. The numbers are a trap on everything.
Of course, on everything. Yeah, exactly.
Another example of that, because at first I was like, I hovered around a few hundred followers for a while, and then we did that kind of follow artists thing, which was really great and really supportive, and they crept up a bit. And then they've kind of plateaued since then, which is fine. But for a little while, I did get sucked into it stopped. Why are there no new people? And I was like, actually, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I kind of had a bit of a word with myself, because it's really easy to get sucked into that.
Of course you can. Of course you can.
I was like, am I still enjoying it as much? Yes. Do I need anything else? No. So
exactly. It's seeing the realization of it, I suppose. It's like we've come to a point now with society and with social media that it does play a part in a lot of people's lives. It plays a part in my life massively as well, but I've had to learn how to structure it and not let it get involved into everyday life stuff, because those numbers can really do bad and harm to people without realizing.
That's really easily, I think. And I think it's very easy for it to become a measure of success, which for some people it is, and obviously certain jobs, of course it is. But in terms of creative pursuit, yes, it's lovely that people see it, and I want people to see it and enjoy it. But actually, I never did it for that in the first place, and I work really hard on like backtracking. If I feel like I'm getting too obsessed with how many views something's had, or if it's got enough likes, and I do sometimes, and sometimes I'll put something up and think, oh, I thought that was really good. Like, why don't more people like it? And then I'm like, stop it. It's irrelevant. I enjoy drawing it. The rest of it is irrelevant.
Exactly.
And I've got to kind of keep doing that, and not compare myself to other people who've got tens of thousands of followers. It's hard. It can be hard to do that, I think, but I think it's important to try to.
No, of course you need to, like, there's a moment where you have to kind of like draw the line and say, okay, listen, like, I enjoy actually making content. Yeah, like I make content, so I enjoy making content. It doesn't bother me what likes and views I'm going to get for it now, as long as it's out there. If it can reach one person and inspire them or motivate them, it's done. I've become that guy now, where it's all about that now. And it's great. At the beginning it was great because TikTok was something that started off and made a lot of people grow quite quickly and share passions as well. But it stagnates with any other social media branding. Algorithms change, money gets involved. And
obviously, I mean, the world opened up as well. If you think about the time that I started TikTok was April 2020. So we were a week or so into lockdown.
That's right.
No one had anywhere to go. So obviously starting then, it was a good time because you had a kind of captive audience because we were all living on our phones, I guess, because we didn't have anywhere to go and do anything. Obviously everything's it stalled a bit since, since life has happened again. But I'm still drawing, but so is my ability to, the kind of evolution of the drawing thing is also like at the beginning I was drawing one thing every day, like that Madonna thing I'd done in a couple of hours because it was quick. But now I'm spending days and days and days, sometimes weeks on one, because I'm getting better and I care more about the detail. So
that's right.
Actually, I can't churn out content. Even if I wanted to, I can't, because I can only draw as fast as I can draw.
Exactly.
So it's it's a different thing now than it was a year ago. I'm not doing the same stuff.
So with your have you always been in? So I know you've been into creative, but was that the first time you started drawing?
Properly, as in I did art at A level, but I've not drawn for fun for myself since I was at school. I mean, both my elder brothers are incredibly talented artists. They are really good. But like I said, I was always more for the writing side. That was my creative outlet, and I did some of that. And I think probably after what we've just been talking about, got a bit obsessed with how good it was or not good it was, and shrunk into myself and kind of turned myself off it for a bit. And then this kind of, obviously, like I said, certainly from an anxiety point of view, I was like, I need something. I want to be creative all the time in whatever guise that is. And drawing just happened to kind of show up at that time. And I thought, actually, I'm just going to have a go at that. But I mean, my husband said last year when I started drawing, he said, we've been together at the time, we've been together 18 years. And he was like, we've been together 18 years. And he's like, I had no idea you could do this. He was amazing. He was like, what? He's like, who picks up a pencil and just starts drawing like that? And I was like, well, I don't know, I like drawing. I used to like drawing, but I haven't done it for a long time. And he was like, I had no idea you could do that. So it was a surprise in the sense that, I didn't know that this would ever be a thing and that I'd do it this way or pursue it.
No, of course. Mine's similar. I've always liked to draw, and I've was into comic books from younger. My uncle got me into it. My uncle was an artist, and that's where I learned. He self-taught me how to draw as well in comic style. And then I stopped at 16 and didn't touch paper and pencil for almost 15 years.
In the way, doesn't it, when you're 16?
Well, yeah, college life. I think the thing that brought it back for me though was I got divorced. I think it was 31, and mum was like, I don't know what you're doing, but just come back home.
Yeah.
And I came home and I went up into the loft and mum kept all my stuff and I just saw my artwork from school and everything. And I was like, oh my God, I was actually really good. Like, what happened? But in between that 15 years, I was still creative. I did videography, photography. I did everything else creative but drawing. And then I saw that artwork and I was like, oh my God, can I still do this? And
I love that.
I pulled everything out and I drawed the whole night I was there. My mum was like, "You been up all night?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like trying
Once you
to
start
draw.
though,
Yeah,
I think if you, again, you're obviously naturally creative. Like I said, it doesn't have to be one thing. If you are creative, I think you have a general desire to create anything in whatever form that is. And usually that can, it does manifest in different ways. But once you start and you start to see, or if there's like a hint of something working out and you're like, and you can get past the kind of, is it good enough bit? And you kind of look at it properly and you enjoy it. It just starts then. I think it kind of snowballs. It's certainly
it
good for
did.
me.
It
Sounds like
did.
it did for you.
Yeah, it all flooded back to me, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And I remembered all the techniques and different like inks to use, and I've gone into digital recently as well, which is a quicker process, and I don't waste so much paper.
I
But
tried to, but could not do it. I was like, oh, look at me, I can draw now. I'm just going to pick up my iPad and just have a get. Nope. All these people, I always reply to the comments when people are underneath digital art giving the artist grief about it being cheating and too easy. I'm like, you are unbelievably wrong. Like, have you actually tried? Because
it is a process, and it was learning because with a pencil you're direct touch, but with a digital screen or a tablet you've still got space in between. It's that that connection. It was like, oh, it's just working a bit slower. I mean, the technology has grown faster, and I work with a company that we do loads of digital tablets and stuff like that, and I'm lucky enough to get to test all of them and have a go with them and see which one's like the one to use. Yes, it's a good. I've made a good transition to it, so I'm happy. But I still love, like, now I'm exploring into using Indian ink and a paintbrush just to change my style up, which I'm trying to keep up with Inktober, but it's been very hard with family.
I've tried that before, with like the writing ones, like I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll do that. I could write a whole book in November, sure. No.
No. So it's been
nice to try stuff.
Definitely. So I mean, the route to all of it, and you said as it is, there's always a creative thing in the background for it, and I know we're both big fans of pop culture and things that have come out. Yes. What was it that started, like kind of triggered your imagination of, if you could remember that memory that you saw something and it was like, oh my God, this is what amazing. It could be a film, TV show, cartoon, anything.
When I was a kid, you mean? Sorry.
Yeah.
For a second, but yeah. It will be Labyrinth for me, without question.
Yeah. Such a good film.
I'm still probably, in fact, I'm probably more obsessed with it now as an adult than I was as a kid, but I've just always been into weird, like dark, kind of unusual stuff like that. I love The Dark Crystal. I love Labyrinth when I was a kid. I had two older brothers, so I probably saw films I shouldn't have seen when I was a bit too young. They're 9 and 11 years older than me, so when I was a kid, they were teenagers. So you can imagine, I probably saw stuff, films I shouldn't have seen. But Labyrinth for me, it definitely was one of those things, like a formative kind of, I love that story. I love the costumes. I love the puppetry, all of that. I'm obsessed with David Bowie. I was from that moment onwards. Still am. I just love that kind of otherworldly, ethereal, magical thing, and that definitely kind of stood out to me. But always, I mean, I've always had that kind of, I think there's something inherently in fans of anything, that kind of possessive, must know everything about it, must own everything about it, must love it the most, must, I very much have that, and I've not gone out of it. In fact, if anything, my fan tendencies and my kind of desire to and hunger to be a fan of things and to embrace things fully has only grown as I've got older. So I think I've always liked what I've liked, and I've always been a fan of things, and I've always had rotations of like posters on my walls when I was a kid. Like, I love Labyrinth in the film sense. In a music sense, I was obsessed with Michael Jackson when I was about 8, like had him all over my bed, like, in a way that, like, I was not the only kid obviously at that age who was obsessed with Michael Jackson, but I think that I was younger than probably some, but like, because I was listening to what my brothers were listening to as well. Again, they lived at home, so I could hear their music. So like weirdly, like I like the Doors because my eldest brother liked the Doors, and like my other brother was really into Oasis, so I like Britpop. So there was all this stuff going on in my house. Like I had their likes. I guess I was like a sponge, I suppose, as a kid.
That's right.
Enjoying what they were enjoying. Films like Flight of the Navigator, Neverending Story,
love it,
like
love it.
All that stuff are just things that, and I watch them still with such love and such comfort. And I know that people keep saying that that's a sign of like, it's a sign of like probably anxious people, probably. That's fair enough. But
they say that, but
things like comfort. But I do. There are just some films and shows that I return to still as an adult that I loved as a kid, and I think all of those feed that creativity, because I think you retain, if you really are a fan of something, you retain that sense of wonder for it, and it doesn't go away. I can still look at Labyrinth now, as you know, I'm nearly 38, and I'll watch that film and I still notice things and I still love it, and I force my kids to watch it because, you know, I'm like, come on, it's great. And they're like, yeah, it's all right. You know, it's different for them, but it's nice to kind of go back and do all that with them and have them to kind of show stuff to as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm excited to share Back to the Future with Lara, but until she's a bit older. But like Labyrinth for me, like that's a family film which me and my brothers and my little sister, we absolutely adore. And it's just, you don't, like what you said about the fandom for it, it's a movie that's resonated really well with us and it's stuck with us, where movies now are easily to be like forgettable.
I think that's it. Yeah, exactly that. And I think there are very few films now. There's a lot of money spent on films, but I don't think that translates into lasting impact necessarily.
That's right.
The two don't correlate, I don't think. And that was one of those films, like there aren't many, well, for some people would say masterpiece is entirely the wrong word. I don't think it is. I think it is a masterpiece in its way, in its approach. And I think I read a really amazing article that actually my boss shared with me, because he was like, oh, you love David Bowie, you'll like this. And it was an article about how David Bowie fans can be snobbery, they can show snobbery towards people whose introduction to him was that, because they saw it as a low point in his career. They saw it as him selling out. But actually, and the whole point of the article was actually, no, it cemented him as this kind of ethereal, otherworldly person that, you know, there was some quote when he died about he couldn't possibly do anything as kind of boring and human as dying because he was David Bowie. And I was like, that's exactly it. And I really felt that. And I actually wrote a piece about David Bowie for like a fanzine thing. And I talked about that being my introduction to him, and how weirdly as a fan, I felt weirdly on the outside because it didn't feel credible enough in his against fans of his music. It felt like there was a bit of a butting heads about, well, that doesn't count, like you can't like Labyrinth, David Bowie, that's not cool enough. But I was like, but I do, that is my version of David Bowie. And I love the other versions, and obviously as you get older you embrace those other things, and I've listened to his music and all that. But at the time, I mean, I was like, this is a perfectly legitimate introduction. I was like, of course, he is the Goblin King to me.
He is. Every time I've gone to Comic-Cons, and I've always seen like there's a handful of cosplayers that do David Bowie as the Goblin King, and they are absolutely amazing. And that was my first introduction to David Bowie as well in the late 80s. So I adore his music. So it's hard to kind of put us in a place.
They don't exclusive, do they? It's like
exactly. And I've enjoyed it for what he's done and what he's brought to the creative industry as well as a creative. I think he's absolutely awesome. So bloody hell. I mean, I absolutely love that movie, and it's something we still watch now. I listen to the soundtrack. It's on my phone.
Yeah, I've got it on vinyl.
Awesome.
I have, of all the things that I collect or have memorabilia of, Labyrinth is probably way up there. I've got quite a lot of, I've got all like they did like limited edition Funko Pops where he was glittery in Australia. I had to have the glittery one even though I had the normal one already. And I like just stupid stuff. Like I'm like, oh no, I need that. I think it's a great fandom, and I think it's a great film. A lot of the Marvel fans will probably be unhappy with me when I say this, but those movies are easily forgettable, and you can watch them 10 times, but I've watched Labyrinth over 500 times. I've watched Back to the Future over 1,000 times in many different ways and formats. So I just personally
think like film is different to what it was before and
think
what's resonated with us?
it's those films as well and there are obviously films with memorable scores now, obviously,
Mhm.
many. Hans Zimmer's still around, so of course it's still happening.
Yeah.
But just, I mean, I'm really excited. I've just booked tickets to go and see Dune. I'm really excited to go and see that. I can't wait. But in terms of like, I think those soundtracks from the 80s and early 90s instantly, everyone recognizes them instantly. Whereas I think some of that's been lost in kind of, not that the scores don't exist, but the memorability, that high impact association of immediately knowing what franchise a sound was from.
That's right.
Is very much an 80s, early 90s thing for me. Obviously 70s for Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
I missed that a bit. That wasn't my bag, but my brothers were very much early Star Wars fans. But for me, like, like all the John Williams and all that kind of stuff, all that kind of thing, that I'm like, oh, I know these films and I know it instantly because they're so ingrained in like my childhood. I feel like my kids don't have that sense of attention. Like, they can't put the music with the film so keenly and so strongly as the way that we could probably do, because the films, I just think it's different now.
It is. It's majorly different. I mean, I've always had this disagreement with most of my friends because they're like, you're too critique on some of these programs that come out, and I'm like, it just doesn't have that level of fantasy that just sticks with me, because now a lot of the stuff, which it will happen, has too much real world things, and where I want to disappear from the world for 2 hours, so it's something that will slap on. So and I know that a lot of the programs and a lot of the comic books now that have come out, they have started to introduce more real world things, where I'm like, I used to go to this content because it was my escape, it was my drug to get away for a bit, but now it's merging in, and some of them are great stories, just some of them just don't resonate with me as well as they used to.
You're right. I think a lot of the stuff created, like I said, there's some amazing content being created now, but obviously there is also, it's easier to make content. So things like, there are so many streaming platforms and all of that, and they all have huge budgets. Whereas obviously, like in the 80s, a big film took 3 years from concept to release, and it only had the cinema, and it was this big fanfare because that's the only way you could get it. And then you had to wait another 2 years to get a VHS. It was a whole process.
That's right.
Whereas now it's like, oh, if we miss it in the cinema, I'll get it next week on Netflix or whatever. And it's a really fast turnaround. So I don't think we have time to build cult following in the way that we used to. Do you know what I mean? We used to get drip fed, and it kept.
That's right.
Like the next bit, and
that's
it's
right.
like, oh, there's so much to choose from, and it's so instant that we lose the kind of hunger for it. So I think it takes a lot for something to be really special now.
Yeah, no, of course, definitely. Definitely is. Definitely.
I feel that sometimes I see a lot, I go to the cinema and I love watching movies, but very rarely do I finish a film and go, oh my God, I love that. Like I loved it. Like, and like I said, Call Me by Your Name was like that for me. I thought it was beautiful. The cinematography is amazing. The score's amazing. And I was like, that someone's put proper love into that. Not money, just love.
Love, yeah.
And I was like, I love that. And it's one of the few times I've watched a film before I've read a book. I normally do it the other way around, but I loved the book even more afterwards, even though I did it in reverse that time. And I think that kind of thing, it's very rare to feel that captivated now by something, which I know some people do. Like I said, Marvel's obviously huge. I love those movies. Like my son loves those movies, but they don't stick with me. I don't pick out huge swathing moments of those and couldn't remember the way I felt, apart from there's a couple of moments which obviously everyone probably feels the same.
Yes,
about.
Of course, yeah.
But other than that, there aren't loads of films and loads of kind of moments in movies or shows anymore where I'm like, oh my God, that was incredibly beautiful or incredibly well written. And obviously that all exists. It's far from gone, but I just think you have to mine a bit further.
Exactly, that's right. And we dibble and dabble into the world cinema as well, and there's a couple of great catches in there as well. But I've always gone backwards, and I've always gone back to the old stuff, and I'll always compare it to that, because like one of the major arguments I have with my friend is Alien. Now, Alien is a great science fiction horror movie, and I absolutely adore that movie, and I love what Ridley Scott did with that originally. And then what it's gone right out of my head now, what James did in number 2 for Aliens 2. But then, they've continued the franchise, and then I didn't really like what Ridley did with Prometheus and the next one that came out after, because I felt like the reason why I was scared of aliens was I didn't know where the hell they came from. They had this mysterious thing about them,
Yeah.
and I love that they could go on different missions and anything could happen. And that was the same concept with the Predator as well.
Yeah.
All I know is I don't know where it's come from, but it's just giving me a great adventure to go on.
Yeah.
I feel like now they give us too much backstory and too much history, and it's just lost the mystery they were.
They had such a rare thing with Alien in that you normally, when you see the thing, everything becomes less scary. Like, I'm a huge horror fan, so for me, I'm like, frighten me, but don't show me what I'm afraid of, because then it's even worse.
That's right.
And worse.
Yeah.
Better. And Alien was great. They did such a good job because you could see it and it still was really scary. Like, it was even scarier because you could see it, which is quite rare. Like, the best example I can think of this, and it's not a film I love, but when Jeepers Creepers came out, I was like, oh, it's really scary. And then they showed you the thing and I was like, well, that's absolutely rubbish. And I'm no longer afraid. That's embarrassing. So I just was like, oh, but Alien was a very rare situation where they showed you it and the fear factor didn't go down. You were like, oh, actually, that is horrendous. That is very scary. They did such a good job. Like you said, Ridley Scott did such a good job with that.
No, he did.
We're a big fan of those films in our house. Less so Prometheus. I didn't mind those films, but they don't sit with you and you don't think, oh, I'm so glad they did that to like complete the story. And I think that's it. Like, I have such strong feelings about remakes, and I'm sure you do. Remakes and rehashes of things. I get a bit tetchy about it because I'm like, oh, some things just shouldn't be messed with.
No.
And Home Alone, for example, they're about to bring out some horrendous remake version of that on the Disney Channel, on Disney Plus, and I'm like, don't touch it. It's so good. Leave it alone. Like, that's one of my other collect all the things films. It's just my Christmas film from my kid.
Yeah.
And whenever I hear about them doing more, I was like, oh, don't. It's so perfect. Leave it where it is. Everything about it was perfect. The comedy was perfect. The music was perfect. We can't replicate it. Leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Yeah, it's a tough one. They, like, a lot of people will get me for this one as well, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody or anything, but like Blade Runner, when they did the 2029, and I think it's a gorgeous movie and I love the soundtrack, it just didn't sit well with me. It's one of those movies that were like, I didn't really need to know anymore. They ended the first one so perfectly. They didn't have to continue this. And I remember my mate saying, you're just being biased about it and you're not liking it at all. And you're just a hater. And I'm like, I'm not. I just like...
If you're really passionate about it, but I think, and I say all of this knowing, obviously the entire point of any form of art is that it's subjective. It's all subjective. And I do understand that, but I think, like I said, I think going hand in hand with being a fan of things is the intense desire to protect, and actually sometimes gatekeep, and that is wrong.
That's right, yeah.
Like wrap your arms around it and go, no, it's mine. Leave it.
That's right.
Like,
that's right.
That's right. And we're all doing that in our own way, but we all see them in a different way. So obviously, some people will welcome it and go, actually, I really did like the addition to the story, and there'll be people like you and I, by the sounds of it, who are very similar, clearly, and they're like, no. Don't mess with it. Please leave it alone. It was so good.
No, that's right. Are you working on anything currently at the moment that you could speak about, or?
I am working. My current drawing is a top secret commission. So actually, my feed is quite quiet because when I'm doing a commission, I obviously can't publicize it because it's going to be a gift for someone. So.
That's right. No, that's fine. That's fine. No. But is there anything in the future that you're thinking of working on?
I think I'm gonna probably after this one, I'm gonna do a few kind of Christmas themed ones because I love Christmas and I've not really tackled Christmas as an opportunity for like doing characters. So my daughter really wants me to do a Buddy the Elf drawing.
That's gonna be awesome.
So I'm gonna do Buddy the Elf. I did do Kevin from Home Alone last year, but I think again because my style's changed so much that I'll probably revisit that because I'll do a better job now than I did last year. So definitely wants to do some Christmas stuff. But then, it'll be inspired by kind of going back to the cinema more, I imagine. Like, I did do a June one already, but I'll probably end up doing more of those once I've seen the film, because that's what happens. I get like a bee in my bonnet about it. And
I'm waiting. I've got a June one in mind that I've sketched it out, but I haven't put it together as of yet. And my brother, who lives in Singapore, he saw it I think it was like last month. And he absolutely enjoyed it. He was like, it was just so epic, and the soundtrack's great. And I was like, I can't wait to see this. And I had an idea. I've seen Yeah.
It does sound epic in that kind of people are making the right noises. That it's one of those films that don't
That's
come
right.
along very often.
That's right. So let's see, because I still do enjoy the Sting one.
Yeah, the old school one. Yeah, we had that on VHS when I was a kid. I remember that.
No, I still enjoy that. I still enjoy that. Awesome. Look, I'm not going to keep you because I know both of us have to go back. Where can people find you? Your TikTok, Facebook, Instagrams. Let them know, and I'll put the links in the description, guys, because you need to go follow, because her artwork is absolutely amazing. I've seen her on her journey as well, so I've seen how much she's changed in her artwork as well. So make sure you click follow, but let us know the links and the names we can get you at.
Yeah. Peachy Keen Art and Illustration on TikTok and Instagram. I don't really use Facebook that much. I probably should, but it's all visual for me, so I go more with those platforms. And I'm still hiding a little bit from my friends and family, I guess, keeping it on other.
That's all right. It's understandable. I did that recently with Facebook. What happened? So I got hacked. It took me almost 3 weeks to get my account back. So I was like, I've got family pictures and everything. I saved all of them and I've started deleting it, and I'm like halfway through 12 years of memories. Oh my God. But I can't do it. And with everything that's happening with social media at the moment now, I just like, it's scary times, and I don't want pictures of my kids up there and my nephew. It's like, okay, I need to be really dumbed down on what I do. Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't on there when I was a teenager, though. I have to say that. I'm glad Facebook came later, because it would be awful. I'd hate having to trawl through all that. That would be really awful. So.
It's a hard one. Definitely, it's a very hard one. Definitely. But no, awesome. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
It means the world, and I'm hoping to get you back on here again. I think because if I when you're gonna watch June, is that
on the 22nd?
On the 22nd. All right, cool. So I probably watch it a day or two later. We're gonna talk. I think it'd be great to get your opinion on it and what you thought about it. That'd be great.
Amazing.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, you're welcome. Thank you so much. And